Shall we call the meeting to order then at, let's see, 5:33? Is that good?
Sounds good.
Okay. I believe I have to read, consistent with the governor's orders suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and banning gatherings of more than 10 people. This meeting will be conducted by remote participation to the greatest extent possible. The public may not physically attend this meeting, but every effort will be made to allow the public to view and to listen to the meeting in real time. Persons who wish to do so are invited to do so at the following link. If you do not have a camera or a microphone on your computer, you may use the following dial-in number. And again, don't dial in your computer and have your phone going at the same time. The meeting will be audio and video recorded. So item number 2 is public. We've done the call to order. Item number 2 is public engagement. I don't believe we have anyone other than our residents that are here before us this evening.
Correct.
Okay, so Anne, shall I turn it over to you for a moment?
Sure. So I'm going to unmute you, Barry. So Barry lives at 3 Mansion, and he's still muted. Sorry, Barry, can you unmute?
Okay, I'm unmuted.
Okay, the floor is yours, Barry.
Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, I'm Barry Krauser from 3 Mansion Road in Wakefield. Background, I've been living here for 42 years. Okay, last year I retired, and on 11/8/19, I went to Florida through 6/5/20. I wasn't here, returned on 6/5. Now, my water bill for the fourth quarter, they said I used 1,200 gallons. Okay, I was only here for 19 days out of this, okay, which is a virtual impossibility to use 1,200 gallons. Now, my usage does go up and down depending on the month. There's no question about that. However, if you look for the past 10 years, which I've got the figures here, I've never had the usage per day at 63, which is what 19 days in 1,200. Okay, if you look at my quarters, I can give you facts. If you look at my quarters, 3 quarters in that year, this December, which I'd left there in 11/8, okay, it was 600 gallon usage, 600 cubic feet. The March number was here at all, it was 0. Okay, but the June one, you gave me 1,200. So it's illogical how all of a sudden in 19 days, it got to 1,200 cubic feet. 14 days, excuse me, in 14 days got to 1,200 cubic feet. Give you a hint with full years, okay, on 6/11/19, it was 1,000 cubic feet. 6/25/18 was 2,300 cubic feet. 6/15, okay, 17 was 1,400 cubic feet. 6/19/16 was 2,000 cubic feet, and so on, okay, and that was for a complete 3 months. 90 days, 95 days, 100 days, 90 days. Again, this was only 14 days. It's virtually impossible in my mind. Maybe you can explain to me if you don't feel this way, how I could use 1,200 cubic feet in 14 days.
So, Barry, my name is Maria Palomino, and I'm my fellow Wakefield resident, Elena Proakis, is on the call with us. I just have a couple of questions for you. So I understand that you were in Florida and you came back for those, 14 days. Is there any chance, that was in June, is that correct? That you came back? Is there any chance that you have a sprinkler system? Could that have been turned on? Could there be a leak with that?
No, because the sprinkler system wasn't turned on until after we got home, after June.
Okay.
Turned off like 10 days, a week later, 10 days later. And when this bill came out, first thing I did was I checked the water meter before I went to bed, had nothing run all night, and checked it first thing in the morning and nothing had moved. So they showed me there was no leaks anyplace.
But is there any chance that, I'm assuming you checked that after you got the statement, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is there any chance in the time that you were home before you got the statement that, there was anything with the sprinkler system that may have happened that could have caused the water to go through the meter?
No, because it wasn't even turned on. We have to have people in to turn on the system.
Oh, I see. I see.
It's not something I turn on myself.
Got you. Okay. So that was the date that they came to turn on your system was,
About a week after I got home.
okay. So that would be approximately, what date would that be?
Approximately the 12th.
June 12th?
So in looking back at the usage, it looks like your September bills tend to be high. And would you say that's from your summer lawn watering?
Yes. The
Okay.
bill I just got was high. It's all my wife's garden club. Okay, she's president of garden club for years. So yes, we have a nice backyard. She does all the landscaping itself. So yes, that's why sprinkler system is always higher in the summer.
Okay.
Which I've never argued about, because that's right is right.
Mhm.
The
And
first
then,
time I've ever had a complaint, by the way.
and then do you go away at the same time every year? I'm looking back at the history.
No, this was the first year we went away. I retired in November, beginning of November.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And your water meter is, do we know, has that been replaced recently?
I asked, Ann asked them, they came down. They said the water meter was fine. I said, can you replace it just to make sure? So this doesn't happen in the future. It has to be happening someplace. You can put a new water meter in, there's still gonna be something wrong with the meter. No one ever knows. And they said, no, you got a new meter in and that's all you're gonna have. I wasn't gonna argue the situation. It wasn't my position.
Mhm.
I still think, I don't know how, I can't tell because this is a high usage area for me, whether it's something wrong with the water meter or not.
So, Anne, just to clarify on the procedure here, are we doing all public participation up front and then going back and discussing the items?
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
All right. I think
And I don't know if you need it even past tonight. I
Mhm.
wasn't sure, you know what I mean? So yes, we thought we'd just do public participation and then continue on.
okay. All right, great. I think those are all the questions I have. I don't know if Maria has any others.
No, I think, I guess my only question on the meter, and do we know how old that meter is in this address? In
I-
this-
All
in Barry's?
the water
residence?
meter, you would have that in your records. The water department.
Yeah, right.
Steve Fitzpatrick sent a couple guys out and checked the meter when Barry originally called and all looked well. I think it was under 5 years old.
Okay. So Steve did go to the house?
He sent a couple of his guys out, yes.
One
Okay,
came out to look at the outside meter and one looked at the inside meter.
okay, great. So Barry, thank you so much for your time and for going through this with Elena and I. We will take your information into consideration, and we will, what we typically do is we discuss this usually as a group. We're missing a board member this evening. And then you will hear back from most likely Ann or someone on the staff to let you know our decision.
Okay, and normally I would never have complained, but it's so
Mhm.
unexplainable to me, even with the water usage going up and down, looking at June every year. Okay, it's illogical to me how I could use that much more in 1 month than I've ever used in my life.
Okay. Well,
I've been here 42 years.
right. Well, I certainly appreciate something that's so out of the ordinary. It would, this is the recourse that you have. So we're glad that you're taking advantage of it.
Yeah, I appreciate your time.
Okay.
All right, thank you,
Very
Barry.
welcome. Thank you.
Have a good night.
You too. So next up is Catherine. Catherine manages the Lakeside
And
Inn.
Okay.
hello,
Hi,
I'm
Ken.
Catherine Nigro. And thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to talk about our concerns with our water bill over the last 3 quarters. And I'm glad to see everyone's healthy and happy in this pandemic season that is hopefully coming to an end. But I did make a few Excel spreadsheets. I don't know if you have access to them.
Yes.
Okay.
Anne has shared those with us. I don't know if Elena, do you have them as well?
Great. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you, Anne. If I can go to Excel spreadsheet, I do have one typo. It is at, on the left-hand column is the date of the bill and the right hand is the water usage.
Mhm.
The second one down is supposed to be 137,000, not 13,000. So
Okay.
forgive me for my mistake.
No worries.
And below that, there are some differences. Basically, I'm trying to reflect that our 2019 water usage numbers were
Mhm.
much less than our current day, except I hopefully will be able to explain to you that due to COVID, we have almost no occupancy in the hotel and our restaurant and bar is shut down. So our water usage has come to a drastic decline. Yet our water usage, according to the meter, is, at least according to these readings,
Mhm.
is very high. So if we can go to Excel spreadsheet 2, you'll see, and again, if I say anything that I need to clarify, please stop me and I'm happy to clarify it. Sometimes I get going on my hotel spiel and if you're not familiar with hotels, it may get lost a bit and I apologize for that.
No worries.
So on the left-hand side, we have May 1st to May 31st, and this reflects nightly rooms sold. You can see in the first column, we have 2020 rooms, and sadly, I have to say, we're at about a little less than 16% occupancy for May.
Yeah.
But if you look at the next two columns, you'll see in 2019, I was at almost a 90% occupancy for that month, which is, I was at 1/6 of what I normally am at in May. I chose May because in May, I took readings for 16 days off of our internal meter at the hotel, and that's in spreadsheet 3, if you don't mind going to that. This spreadsheet reflects from May 3rd to May 18th, and it shows the gallons used per day. Those gallons come out on average for a day in May to 734 gallons per day, if I average these 16 readings. If I then extrapolate out for a month, I'm at about a little over 22,000 gallons. And then for a quarter, I'm at 66,000 gallons, which if we look back at Excel spreadsheet number 1, is about a third of what's reflected on the July 9th statement, which is 183,400. And I don't know why this is. I can't explain it. We looked for sources of water loss.
Mhm.
I had a plumber come. He sent an email today talking about when he did visit the hotel. He's actually been back 3 times over this 3 quarters, in which time he didn't find any sources of leaking water. He did find 3 running toilets initially, but I'll tell you, with 100 toilets in the building, 3 are always running. So I don't know that that is what caused it. But we luckily also have all of our water above ground. So if I had a leak, I would either see it pouring through a ceiling or puddling up on the first floor. And I don't see that anywhere. Not only that, as I said before, because the restaurant and bar is shut down, our public restrooms aren't being used. Our occupancy is at a pathetic 10 to 15% a month. Not many showers, not much flushing of toilets, and I just can't explain this. I hope it's not a mistake with the meter, but I don't know where else to head to try and explain it.
Okay. So your plumber that came looked, all he found was the evidence of the 3 running toilets. That was
Yes, and I
essential.
had My maintenance staff, in addition to that, I said, let's check every room, go and look, make sure we have every tub is buttoned up, we don't have any drips in any sinks. And we did that. And really, there was nothing that could explain this discrepancy. One of our ice machines is totally shut off because it's a self-help, and because of COVID, we're not allowed to use that one. So that isn't calling for water. I reduced down to one ice machine that our staff uses to bring guest ice if they need it. And it's a smaller machine and uses de minimis amount of water compared to the big one. And the restaurant and bar isn't open. I just don't know. Pool wasn't open, so I didn't fill the pool at all.
You know, so in the readings that you took in May, there are even some big discrepancies, you know.
Yes.
May 13th is only 51 gallons, whereas May 10th was 1,700 gallons. So any thoughts on those differences?
Yes, so when I did this chart, I noticed that myself. And when I looked back at the days, the occupancy in the hotel, and you can refer to Excel spreadsheet number 2, you'll see that my occupancy dropped down to 8 rooms. And once we dropped down to 8 rooms, and we've only been using, believe it or not, the washing machine for towels and sheets, 1 load a day. But at that point, when we hit such a low occupancy, I have double the amount of linens as I do the room numbers. So there was no need to call in someone for laundry for about a week because I didn't need to use the machines. And I think that will explain that. That's the only thing I can come up with.
Yeah, it seems to me like a really big change, even from, you know, the 4th to the 8th were pretty consistent at 1,000.
Mhm.
And then suddenly it drops down and then it starts to jump back up again. I mean, I almost wonder when you do have occupancy, do you tend to use the same rooms? Like, is it possible there are certain
No.
toilets that run and run and run, and then someone comes into a room and flushes it and it stops running, and then that solves the problem for a little while, and then it.
That's an interesting question. So what we do, especially because of COVID, we don't allow someone to check into the same room within a 24-hour period to keep our staff safe. We let the room air out before cleaning it and so forth. So what we then do is we do our preventative maintenance on those rooms before guests get back in them. And sadly, because I have no occupancy, we have nothing but time at the hotel. So the staff is running around doing these PMs on a daily basis. And so I feel very confident in saying that I don't have any running water or toilets, like you're saying, that get stuck, you know, with the flapper not completely down or whatever it may be. I don't see it.
And in terms of during this period in May, I know you captured all the readings. You've never had any issues with your, you know, your outdoor, and you mentioned the pool, and that wasn't a factor, but you've never had any issues with your landscaping sprinkler system? Any work on that ever?
We don't have an outdoor sprinkler system. We have, in the office park, we do have sprinklers, but we have not used them for the past 2 summers, and they actually work off of wells. They don't come off of the town water.
Okay. Well, that rules that out.
One other thing I'm curious about is it looks like the January 2019 bill was a whole lot higher than the January 2020 bill. And I might have missed, what was the reason for that?
It's a typo. So
Okay. So sorry, what was the typo?
So it should be 73,000 roughly in 2019 and 137,000
Okay.
in 2020. So it's you know, almost double, yet my occupancy is 1/6 of normal and I have no running restaurant or bar.
Well, in January though, your occupancy wouldn't have been down because that was before
Oh,
COVID.
fair enough. Except that's our slowest season. So, you know, the winter season isn't very busy at the hotel. It's when we hit March, mid-March to mid-November typically is our high season.
Okay.
So, as I was, it looks like, but just looking at December over December, when I looked at it, it looked like this December, the 19th, you had the 137, 1370, and last in 2019, 731. So that's like 639 higher this year over last, correct?
Right.
63.9. I think the 63.9 is.
63,900 more.
Right, okay. Forgive my head for numbers.
No, that's okay. The difference right below it is more gallons this year, 2020.
2020, okay.
So have you ever checked your meter, say, well, first of all, you did all these daily readings in May. Have you done anything since then similar?
I have not.
Okay. And the other question is, did you ever check overnight? I mean, obviously in a hotel, sometimes there are people up during the night, but it would be interesting to check from, say, I don't know, 2 a.m. to 5 a.m., something like that, and see if the meter is moving at all and how much. Because just the erratic nature of the changes, if it's not a problem with the meter, leads me to believe that it's something within the building, either dripping or leaking. Like you said, it has to be leaking into a toilet or into a drain, because obviously if there was that much water leaking into a wall or a ceiling or a floor, you would see it.
Sure.
But it does make me wonder what kind of activity, especially with low occupancy still, is happening on that meter overnight. So that might be an interesting thing to monitor.
If you want me to, I can have my night auditor run a test for 2 weeks every day at 2 a.m. But I don't know that that will answer a question for us, only because I guess you're looking to figure out why there's 51.7 gallons that one day, or why there's 988 versus 1,000.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the question would be, if the meter's functioning properly,
Mhm.
then these ranges of daily flows are very unusual, where your occupancy was, it was low. It was lowest in that period where you had the lowest usage, but at the same time, it wasn't that big of a difference. You had, 10, 11, 12 rooms occupied, and then you dropped down to 8, 7, 9 rooms occupied, but you're at 51. Let's see.
Many people,
Just-
8 rooms rather.
Yeah, your flow on May 10th was 33 times higher than your flow on May 13th.
Mhm.
So that
But we
doesn't,
weren't, that week, I wasn't using any of our commercial water sources. So I wasn't using our washer and dryers. Only because I didn't need to. I didn't call anyone in for laundry. When you have 8 rooms in a hotel, a housekeeper can do their own laundry at that point, or just use what's left over. And that's what we did for a week to save on salary expense. And
That
that's
was-
what we
that was
continue
when
to
you
do
had
now.
so that was when you had the 1,700. You're saying you used more in-house laundry?
Right, so that day that I used 1,700 was because the day before, you see, I didn't have laundry. But then when you get down below the 1,700, like the 988, the 51.7, 856, I wasn't using our commercial tools to turn rooms. I was leaving them vacant for COVID clearing and airing. And then following up a week later, every other week, we were back to doing laundry.
Okay.
So if you want to know, a commercial washing machine, I looked this up on our, uses 25 gallons for one cycle.
Okay. Okay. So I guess the the complicated thing that I see here is that, typically when someone comes and asks for an abatement, it's, you had a particular spike at a particular time and it was, the irrigation system had a leak, so we don't want to have to pay the sewer charge. Or it's the, we had a toilet leaking that was leaking for 3 weeks, but then we figured it out and we fixed it and now it's not leaking anymore. And so now we're interested in, having some relief on that high bill that we had. But in this case, it just seems like the usage goes up and down so much. I wouldn't even know where to begin on, determining what is excess or what is leak, or even where it might be coming from, unless it's that the meter is not reading properly. But short of that, I just don't even know. Like, do you understand what I'm saying? There's no clear cut answer, like this much is leak and this much is,
I do. I don't know anything about meters and I won't pretend to,
Mhm.
but I am pretty good with numbers. And it just doesn't make sense that in a year when I was at 90% occupancy with a full functioning restaurant and bar, I was using less water than in a year with COVID and no guests and no restaurant, no bar. So I would assume that something is wrong with the meter. But that's because I have pulled my hair out trying to think of other ways to explain it.
So I have just a couple more questions, and I don't know if Ann will know this because I always ask who has looked at the meter? How old is that meter? I'm assuming that's a different meter, Ann, since it's a commercial entity. And the second thing I wonder is, I know you said you had a lot of staff around right now because you're not at full capacity. Has somebody dropped in the dye test to every one of your toilets just as a double check to make sure?
No, I'm not familiar with that, but I'm happy to do it if you'd like us to.
I'm just thinking if you have the staff there, it might help just in
Sure.
case there could be one rogue toilet that, I mean, I don't know. This is definitely, since I've been hearing these cases, I've not seen, as Elena said, a range like this.
Sure, I'm happy to do whatever you think can help us come to the conclusion of how and why this is going on.
the dye tablets, you just put them in the back of the toilet at a time when the room's not occupied. And you put them in, say, at night. And then the next morning you go and you see if any of the dye ends up in the bowl of the toilet.
Sure,
So if there's even anything leaking by, you would see that color in the
sure,
toilet bowl as well as the back of the tank.
fair enough. And we can do it in all the vacant rooms any given night. I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea.
It's
And you
worth a
may
try, right? I mean,
yeah, and you may
Sure.
even try each toilet twice, 2 different nights, because the way the data looks does make me wonder if there are toilets that are leaking, but intermittently, sometimes the flapper closes right and sometimes it doesn't. And then, that could present a problem. The other thing is the same thing is true with, a faucet or something that is not really closing, the handle's not closing properly, but some guests handle it better than others, one figures out that if you turn it back a quarter turn, it stays off,
Sure.
and another just tries to shut it off, it runs all night. And so definitely I would say to look into those types of things.
and regarding the meter itself mechanically, Ann or Joe, any sense has that been, and forgive me, I don't want to mix up the case, but has anyone, Steve or anyone, been out there?
Yes, they've checked it and it's a census meter, so it's a newer meter from what we had before. So we had tried to rule that out first.
Okay, so newer meter, meaning when might that have been installed? Do we know?
13.
And
2013?
what
Yes.
size meter it is?
Lena, I think it's 3-inch.
Okay, and is it a compound or it's just a standard?
I gotta pull it up. Hang on. Standard.
Okay.
Okay, so shall we, how did we get Catherine those?
I can get her some tablets and drop them off.
Okay, super. All right.
Thank you very much.
So our,
As far as this, I'm happy to do this. We'll test our toilets and see how they're running. And then when do I come in front of you all again? What can I do in the future to figure this out? What is the next step, I guess is what I'm asking.
I would also recommend having your night person that you mentioned look at the meter, say 2 a.m., 5 a.m. for a bunch of nights in a row and just see if there's movement in the meters, in the meter, and how substantial it is. If it's consistent every single night, that would point to something leaking. Or even if you see it half of the nights, that might point to something intermittently leaking.
Or some of our guests, are up all night because they work nights. So the nights that they are not working, they're up all night. And they do use the water throughout the night and sleep all day. So it'll be interesting to see. A lot of the workers that we have right now are night workers.
Okay, so I guess, it doesn't even have to be then a period that's that long. If you feel like there is a particular period of the night where you're least likely to see usage beyond, the occasional toilet flush,
Okay,
that, maybe it's 3 to 4 a.m. or whatever it is.
sure, we can give it a go.
Yeah, I guess the main thing is to see if there are ever periods of time when the meter is not spinning. That would,
I will say that the plumber says that it moves bizarrely quickly.
Hmm.
That's his judgment call. It doesn't mean much to me.
okay.
Elena, how long would you advise Catherine to do that reading? Over how many nights?
Maybe over a couple weeks.
Sure.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
And then Catherine, if you could just get that information to me, then I can send to the advisory board.
Of course, happy to.
So tomorrow I'll catch up with you for the tablets.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for sharing all this and for trying to work with us to figure out what is the cause of the great the fluctuations there. It will be good to know if there's anything further that you might find out on your own.
Great. Well, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank
Thank
you.
Everybody,
Thank you.
can I get in on the meeting for a minute? Is this open for public or?
Yep.
So that was just someone finishing up on a water dispute, but yes, we are still in public participation.
Can I just have a moment with my water concerns too?
Sure. Can you tell us your name, sir, and your address?
Sean Gilligan at 39 Sweetser Street.
Okay.
And I've had some issues, with the high water bill too. And, I've checked, my toilets and all. And I did one was, I think leaking a little bit. But I was just wondering about the tier system, the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, when this was implemented, and how come, the public wasn't aware that this was going, it's like a tax increase without putting in a tax increase. It's inevitable that you're going to end up in a tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 when you're running a family, with the washers going, people using the bathroom, the toilets, obviously we don't have the second meter with, if you're using a sprinkler and you're filling your pool, you're spending money on storage charge, which is, which seems like an upcharge anyway, because you're being billed for something you're not using. So the tier system, I just can't believe that went into effect, because, unless you're an elderly person or elderly couple where you're showering a couple times a week and doing laundry once a week, it's impossible not to end up into the tier 2, tier 3, or tier 4. So why don't they just start billing us monthly? And that way we can't end up into the second or third tier. I think it's fair that we get billed monthly if they're just going to implement that, what appears to be a tax increase. Why not bill us monthly? And then I won't end up in the second tier or the third tier or the fourth tier.
Do you mind if I take a stab at answering that? Or
Sure.
Joe, do you want to? Okay. So this committee every year reviews the required rate revenue increases to meet our obligations with the water and the sewer funds. So we need for the revenue that we bring in for the water and sewer funds to be able to offset the actual costs of the system. So there would have been a rate increase no matter what this year, even if we had done it as a flat rate increase, the way without the tiers, the way we had it previously, everybody would have seen a piece of that increase for sure. What we decided to do with the tiers is that, so technically by state statute, the MWRA communities are supposed to have a block rate system, which essentially equates to having these tiers. And it's in order to promote conservation, but it's written into state law that the MWRA communities are supposed to have a tiered system. So we had the option of just applying across the board, say, I don't know what it might have been, a 4%, 5% increase on everybody on a flat rate. But instead we decided to do the tiered rate, where the people who are in that very first tier, which like you said, is practically nobody who can stay below that first threshold. We just didn't increase the rate at all on that first bit of water. So everybody who uses, I believe it's that first 1,000 cubic feet of water in the quarter, and you can correct me if I have the number wrong, but everyone who uses that didn't get any increase on that first bit of water they use every quarter.
Right.
And because of that, then the tier 2 rate was more than what that percentage change would have been. But it really, for the average family, it kind of evens out with what the rate increase would have been had we not done the tiers. So what it does is over time that will promote more conservation for the people who get into those really high tiers where you're into what we would consider non-essential water use. So when you're up in tier 2, you're still paying probably the same that you would have had we just increased the rate flat. And, in fact, you might even be paying a little bit less. But when you get up into tier 3, tier 4, that's when you're, watering your lawns, using what we consider non-essential water. And then that's when you're paying sort of a premium for that more luxury water that you're using. So I think it's easy to look at the higher tiers and think like, wow, that's a huge increase over what we paid before. But you have to at the same time consider that you aren't paying any increase on that first 1,000 gallons, that you would have been paying had we applied what we needed as a rate increase to meet our revenue requirements across the board. So does that make sense?
Yeah, somewhat, but I just think that, I don't know. I think I probably would have preferred the increase in the percentage over the tier system, because like I said, it's like putting oil in your oil tank, if you have an oil tank, and, and you have a tough month, and you blow through the oil, and then they come back and they say, well, we're gonna upcharge you triple the amount because you used your whole 100 gallon, it just doesn't seem right. That's all. I was very concerned. My bill was about 2,100. With the early payment, it was like 1,865. I had explained to them that I changed a bulb in my pool, and I drained it down about 3/4 and then refilled it. And I was told that, you have to drain it completely. I didn't, because I didn't have to, so being conservative, and I was still penalized,
Yeah, I think one tough thing for a lot of people is that the new rate took effect at the same time as people were getting their summer bills. And so it's kind of like a double whammy where you get the highest usage quarter at the new rate and at the new tier structure. And that could be tough for people. But I think as people get into the winter months, you'll probably find that it's not that big of an increase when you're using sort of the average household rate of water.
So this is here to stay then? This tier system's here to stay, or?
It was voted in for fiscal 21. It was approved by the council, it was recommended by this committee and then approved by the town council.
Mhm.
So it's here to stay for fiscal 21, but if the community hates it and wants to come to this board and suggest that we recommend something different for fiscal 22, it's not set in stone, but we did go through an extensive analysis with a consultant who recommended a number of different options, and we poured through all of them, and this was where we ended up.
Is there a chance that they'll consider a second meter for the sprinkler systems and for, pools or, watering and that sort of thing? Because of again, there's an upcharge on storage, which is 3 times the cost of, I think it's, what is it? 3 times the amount of on the water bill.
Yeah, we had issued a letter, I believe about a year ago, maybe, that had a recommendation that if we were to ever go to second meters or back to second meters, that we would recommend a number of other conditions that go along with it.
Yeah.
And so I don't think it was something that we said was out of the question. It was just something that we said, if we're going to do it, you have to look at all these other factors as well. So
Are there second meters still in the community
Joe, do you know
that are grandfathered in, or no? Does anyone have it? I'm just saying, are there still houses, dwellings with 2 meters in them, one for a sprinkler and so
Yes.
forth?
Yes, there are.
There are. So, and those are considered grandfathered in? Is that how that works?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you
It's
for,
going to be a hot topic for a while for everybody.
well, it's an important topic, and I think we certainly, just so you know, the board spent quite a lot of time looking at the rate review.
Mhm.
Nothing's ideal because honestly, who wants to pay more?
Yeah.
What we really tried to do was look at something that where folks that were on a fixed income, we tried to do something that would appeal to all budgets, knowing that we were heading into a time that would be challenging given the current, fiscal period due to COVID. So, the thought behind this was, as Elena pointed out, you're looking at your everyday water usage versus water usage that in my own home, struggle with my husband saying, please shut the sprinklers off because we're in tier 2, please. So
how do you know when you're into that second or third tier?
well, I'm just guessing because he's got the taps going like where,
Yeah. And it's hard not to, where you can have, yellow grass, and then your neighbors are going to be upset because your grass is green and yours is yellow and brown. And
yes. So we're learning, I guess we're learning together, but I'm trying to nudge him into the conservation, and that's what the bill, I think, for us will do. But as Elena said, this is nothing that we've done is set in stone. this is for a year. We'll see what the winter brings, what the rates, how that will, hopefully things in our own household, and I hope in yours will even out a little bit more. And,
Yeah. Okay.
we'll see.
All right. All right. Well, thank you for your time tonight, and appreciate all you do,
Thank you.
and
Thank
stay
you.
safe.
You as well.
you.
Take good care.
Thank you.
All right, Catherine, did you get everything? Did you finish up what you had to say?
Yes,
Sorry.
yes.
All
Thank
right.
you very much. And I look forward to working through it with all of you.
Yep, I'll be.
Thank you, Catherine. Take
Have a
good
good
care.
day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So Brenda was the last one that was on the list, but
Okay.
she was worried about, she hadn't done a Zoom call before. I told her that she could just call in, but I don't see any calls in, so I'll catch up with her tomorrow, but I'm assuming she still would like her case reviewed. She just may not have had much to say.
Okay. And I have to say I don't think I looked at hers as closely as I did the other two, right before I jumped on the call here. So, in fact, did she have one particular one major complaint, or was it just a recent?
So she had a very high bill. Well, she left her mother at her house and she had gone to Florida for a couple months. So she wasn't sure if there was a leak or if her mother left the water
Oh,
going.
yes. Okay. All right. So we just weren't sure where the water went, but the water went through the meter.
Yes.
Okay. So, well, I guess we will just wait on her until perhaps.
Yeah, I'll try to check in with her tomorrow, just see if she hasn't changed her mind or she had difficulty tonight.
Okay, super. So should we, anyone have anything else to say on the water hearings this evening?
So we had 9 to start with. We couldn't make a determination on Catherine's or Brenda's, the last 2. Barry got a rejection, but all the people who got a rejection were able to then dispute tonight. So it said that the first round, the committee didn't find a reason. Here are the reasons why we think your bill was high. And then, but if you still would like to dispute it, you could certainly come tonight. And Sean Gilligan was one who did get a rejection letter, but he just wanted to come and say his piece, but he didn't want to dispute any further. He'd actually paid his bill.
Interesting.
Oh, I see. Okay.
But I think he wanted to still be heard, which.
And fair enough. I mean, Elena, thank you for your terrific explanation and overview of the process. That was
Hang
so
on.
helpful. Oh. I think, are you on mute?
Yeah, sorry, that was,
Okay. No worries.
he knows checking if I was still here so he could lock the door.
Locked in.
Locked in.
So I'm not at my desktop, but I believe the moratorium is up for review in either fiscal 22 or calendar 22. I have to double check I don't remember what the document says off the top of my head. So it's coming back up for conversation.
That's on the second meters?
Yep.
Okay. I mean, honestly, I don't understand why we don't allow them, but
I think the only question is how to fund the difference in the effect to the sewer rate might be.
right.
Because they didn't have the reserves at the time to float what the difference or the impact might look like.
Okay. That makes sense.
If the council chose to, we probably have to do a cost of service study and come up with some sort of a policy, related to implementation. But if they decided to go with that, maybe there's the appetite there to balance with free cash. I just don't know exactly what the impact of that number would be without a full kind of in-depth look at that.
But the people who still have the second meters are still only paying water on those meters and not sewer?
Yes, there was a short period of time in either the late 90s, early 2000s, just before Rick came in, where the moratorium was lifted. And then at that time, the Board of Selectmen chose to put it back into place.
Okay.
So it was a real there's a real brief period of time for you to have a second meter and be grandfathered in. You actually need your own water service for the meter separately. Yeah, so it was new construction at the time with most of the people that got to take advantage of it, because other than that, it was kind of cost prohibitive.
Yeah. So how many do you think we have?
It's less than 200. The number's probably closer to about 100 though.
Okay, interesting.
So
All
there's
right,
not a lot.
something to think about then when it comes around again.
Definitely. Okay, so should we move on to board update?
Your,
So just one last thing, how do we want to proceed with these 2 out of the 3?
so the hotel one, they need to gather more information. I mean, I wouldn't even know what we would decide based on what they submitted. Like what
Right.
would you even credit? There's like zero information other than erratic water use.
Yeah. Correct.
Um,
Okay, so I'll drop the tabs off to her, have her report back in 2 weeks, and then I'll forward it on to you guys.
okay, that's great.
Great.
And then on Brenda, you're saying that you didn't make a decision because you weren't sure what to
Well,
decide.
it was kind of the same. We don't have, there's no, she didn't fill her pool. There's no leak. One person in the house. We didn't know where that was.
Yeah, and the historic usage, I mean, it's obviously way out of whack.
Way,
So she
way.
probably just left something running for a few days.
Like the downstairs bathroom sink or something.
Sink
That's what I
on.
guess. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have any issue approving some sort of an abatement for them just because it's obviously not, not normal for this property. I don't know though. I mean, we haven't traditionally just randomly said we won't charge you for the difference, right?
Correct. So I don't know if people want to just send in their thoughts on the 3. And if they have an amount or don't have, or don't want it, and then I can just follow up with everyone.
I wonder how much of a savings it would be if we knocked some portion off, but also charged anything that was left just at the tier 1 rate.
I think I saved, I don't know, I looked at her situation, but I didn't save it. And the file that I had, Ann, is for the is it Clarion, Ann?
Yes, I can resend it to you.
Well, I have it in an email so I can find it, but I do remember that the usage was like, wow,
Yeah.
just as if, someone did leave a tap running or, which is entirely possible. But I think to Elena's point, I don't believe we've had a consistent policy in a situation where we can't pinpoint any kind of a leak. So there must be some kind of an oops. And what's the best way to handle that, knowing that the town obviously doesn't have a pot of money that's not going to run dry, right? So
Right.
yeah, I don't know if this, I mean, I would defer to you and Joe, and do we want to hear from Chris too? I mean, I feel like we should have a consistent way to handle a situation like this because it does come up.
Yeah, and I do feel like I don't know, I feel like in general on our handling of these, we kind of waver and don't necessarily keep track of what we decided the last time to inform our decision the next time, which I guess is part of what you're starting to do with the ones that are straightforward. We just apply some standard practice to how we address them. But I feel like this is definitely in that gray area where we've handled it different ways, different times. But yeah, at the same time, I mean, they've never had a usage over 1900 and now they're at 9200.
Right.
We probably have to discuss it further. I know if you look around, I think it might be Burlington. I think they're the names in the top of my head. They, as a matter of policy, will actually allow one unexplained water use a decade. And it's a certain portion, right? So if they're claiming that they lost 1,000 cubic feet, I think they might give them half of it. You know, and then you have one oops, right, every 10 years.
Right.
Mhm.
We could think about putting something together like that. I don't know. I can't remember off the top of my head if any of those policies we looked at and hit on anything similar to that. That's just the first that comes to mind.
That's it. I'm gonna power wash my house once a decade.
Might as well get the car and fill the pool too.
That's right.
Most of the ones we looked at were pretty firm that there were, you know, I don't know if they hold that in their back pocket and then pull that out, but there was no mention of anybody getting a free get out of jail card.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, Maria, I guess you got to look at it two ways. You know, that one person is technically taking on a hardship, but on the other hand, you're also taking another 8,000 and change and not passing the cost on to them too. So not to be devil's advocate and make it more confusing for you already, but
Mhm.
Yeah, somebody pays for it. In the
yeah,
end.
exactly.
Well, and that's why I feel like we should have some type of a kind of a standard fallback, so that, you know, it seems like a lot of the people that come before us, there is a good possibility that there was some kind of a leak, or there was, you know, it can be traced to something. But there are these instances, you know, in this particular case where someone living alone is just that, who knows where that water went, but I mean, it is, I mean, do we just, I mean, I like the idea of the once in a 10-year policy, but you know, it's, if someone has a hardship, I mean, I'm assuming they have the hardship and that's why they're coming to us, right? If it's an oops and you can, you know, cover it, you're in a position financially to cover it, you're not going to waste your time going to the board and making calls. And I'm assuming, I could be wrong. But I still, Elena, I don't know if there's anything like this that happens in Melrose, but I'm assuming, is there any type of standard answer if someone did this, you know, like say I had one time, my daughter was very young and she left the downstairs toilet running. I think it ran for about an hour before I caught it. I have no idea what that cost us. But
Yeah, I think, well, one difference here is that we have the ability to pull 90 days of hourly data off the meter. So we get much more information and we identify leaks very quickly because we see, based on our meters, they provide a list of locations that appear to be leaking, and we send out letters to people and say something looks like you have a leak. So I feel like we have a system that allows us to be a lot more proactive, so we get fewer
okay,
questions like this.
okay.
But at the same time, if somebody waits till they get their bill and then doesn't call us for a month and then calls and says, you know, I really can't afford this bill, sometimes it's too late for us to gather that data. And what we do when our abatement committee meets, I would say if there's a real hardship, we do tend to provide some sort of relief.
Mhm.
We haven't had an abatement meeting in so long that I don't remember really the ins and outs of how we decide, but I do know that, and Anne knows Donna Cardillo, she has a real soft spot for people with a hardship. And she tends to push for an abatement.
Yeah.
So
So-
I would say we'd be likely to provide some relief for something like
And I'm with you.
Sorry to interrupt. So just so you know, so when the bills are run and the reads are first done, if we notice anyone's higher than they usually are, we will call them.
Yes.
So there's a week of calling where we're like, and we asked them to get an actual read off their meter, just see if it's making sense with what the read was. So most of these people have heard from us. I mean, Barry didn't hear from us because his amount was a small amount, but anyone with a high amount, they would hear from us before they got their bill.
Okay.
Yeah, and I've received that call before and it was great. And it was from power washing our house, but it was nice to know that somebody was concerned about our water bill.
Elena, do you know what the cost is to jump from where we are into fixed space roughly? So we're at the point now, we have, every one of our meters is a census with the exception of like 100 and change. And they're just, your trouble spots in town.
Yeah.
I think we're close enough to move towards fixed based metering to be able to pull those types of reports. The only thing I don't know, I just filled out the survey for census so they can get back to me with more information, but I have no idea what that cost might look like to implement that. I'm
So the
wondering,
tops that we have on the meters now in Wakefield have the capability to get those kinds of reports?
the readers on the outside of the house do, because they emit that, it's not RFID, but it's that radio signal. So we could do a fixed base and basically we'd get a cell phone data, like a data type plan. And we could do it like that. We could manage it right from inside. So anybody that uses over X amount of cubic feet a day would trigger the alarms and everything like that. I just don't know what the cost is to get the software to be able to do it. And I'm waiting to get called back from census to find that out. I didn't know
Yeah,
if you had a ballpark idea.
I don't know what we paid because it was all right before I started, that it was, that's when we purchased the system, when we procured and purchased the types of meters and tops that we were putting in, and then we were well into the meter replacement program when I started.
Mhm.
But I could put you in touch with Donna, who managed that program and probably knows.
That would be great. That'll fast track some things, because
Okay.
if we're gonna think about doing it, we should probably gather our ducks in a row now, because when it comes time to ask for it, in the water budget, if we put it together now, it'll likely be something we could maybe try to implement in the spring, early summer. Which
Okay.
logistically, it's such a useful tool for us, but then it also gives the customers a portal to get in and seek their own information too, doesn't it? Generally.
No, so the thing that we have is actually, so we have to go out and do what we refer to as flashing the meter to get that hourly 90-day record. So it's not something that automatically gets saved, or I guess the meters, my understanding of it is that the meters are constantly taking that hourly data and storing it, and it just stores it for 90 days. So when you decide you want to flash a meter, our reader goes out with his handheld and does something that downloads that data into his onto his laptop, and then he has that last 90 days of hourly data. But it's a manual process. It's not, we can't just go on and look at it any time we want to. The residents can't just go on and look at it. We have to go out and do whatever that is that extracts the data from the meter into our system.
Gotcha.
But it sounds like what you have might be a little more slick, like might have a more robust capability.
I think it's all in the relative same wheelhouse, right? So it's like Ford, GM, right? They both make four-door cars. So you're just running something slightly different.
Okay. Yeah, I know the software that we use is called Insight.
So what if it's just say for, just for yucks, if Wakefield had the Insight system that you have, and Ann's team is looking through the bills and they see this woman that had the big spike, they could dispatch someone to go flash her meter and see that, say, on July 10th, she had X many gallons run through.
Yeah, and that it ran continuously from, hour after hour after hour. They could say from the 10th to the 12th, you were using 50 gallons of water every hour, all night long,
Wow.
and then obviously on X day, it appears that whatever it was turned back off.
Okay. Oh, that would be super helpful if we could have anything like that.
Yeah, so for something like the hotel issue, I mean, it would become extremely obvious what their problem is if we had that kind of data, for
Mhm.
sure.
Mhm. Right.
Yeah, then there's other ones out there. A Medford uses one where the customer logs in and they can watch the same type of information, but the last 90 days.
Okay. Well, if it's not going to break the bank, I would imagine it would be super helpful for you all because you're the private investigators on all these calls.
Yeah,
Right?
and I didn't realize that the meters we have even had that capability. So that's awesome if what we're using, if it's just an add-on cost to get the software or access the data.
I just have no idea what the licensing cost is right now. And everybody that you talk to uses something just slightly different. I know like Brookline uses a system which is pretty comparable to ours, but their network is so massive. I can't even compare the scale that we're at compared to where they are. You know,
Yeah.
they're a completely different animal.
Oh, well, Joe, that's great that you are investigating that. That's terrific.
Anything that will allow us to work smarter,
Mhm. Mhm.
it's a no-brainer, really.
Excellent. Okay, so will anything else at the moment on the,
I think
oh, we didn't decide for Brenda. I'm fine.
That under advisement, and when we work on the other three, we can talk about the other two, sorry.
Yeah, I guess between now and the next meeting, if we can have some indication of what we've done in the past. I feel bad that I can't remember what we did.
No, of course not. That's fine.
Yeah, just any similar cases and what we decided.
I'll pull through the minutes and grab some comps. That way we can kind of get it out to you guys to review and then kind of digest what we like that we've done, what we like that we would try to avoid. You know, and then the next meeting will be, so November, the construction season will be settling down a little bit. So unless we have a lot of abatements, we could have kind of a light agenda. Maybe we send out some more different policies to review that other places are doing. And maybe we create, we put something in writing of, what we're looking for every time the application comes out. Here's a couple of things that without this we're kind of at a non-start. And that way we can try to make this world of gray a little bit more black and white than, sometimes it's unavoidable, but anytime that we can get it black or white, it's probably going to do us, better.
Yeah.
Definitely. That would be helpful. I think it's a matter of course, Joe, on the cases we've decided, we have a lot of times suspended sewer fees and we've suspended the, like the late fees and things like that as a matter of course, but
Right. So
just to have a couple.
Right. We're not in the business of beating anybody up. We want to work with everybody. So
Right.
as soon as anybody comes in and even has an inquiry, interest, demands, any penalties are considered null and void until some sort of determination comes out of that. So, that's almost your automatic. Then from there, it's kind of discretionary, case by case dependent.
Okay. So, all right. Well, I think we'll just, for now, we'll leave this for now and we'll come back to it with follow-up prior to the next meeting and then perhaps a little more discussion at the next meeting if time allows and then go from there.
Sounds good.
Great. Elena, your time, how are you doing on your time?
Well, I think I'm well into missing whatever they're doing at this point. I feel so bad that I didn't even notice. I was literally looking for the Zoom link for this meeting, didn't realize that it was in the agenda. And so I was Googling I was searching in my email for Zoom. And I came up with 2 emails from the Galvin that were like 5th grade back to school night tonight, meet the teachers, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, ugh. So I guess at 6 they were doing like a general thing. And then at 6:30 they were splitting into the cohorts so you could meet your kids' actual teachers. So.
Do you want to sign off with us? And I just wanted to check with you.
Yeah, I don't know. It looks like we have quite a few other things to talk about on the agenda and.
I don't think anything we can't push to the next meeting.
I feel sort of bad doing that, but I wouldn't mind. doing
There's
that.
nothing on there that was, we did what we, those people were what we wanted to get done, so.
I'll give you the Reader's Digest. So for recycling, the RFP is out. We had a good first kickoff meeting with all the vendors. We threw all the advisory board's ideas and the environmental sustainability's ideas into the RFP. So I
Great.
think we're going to get good data back, and hopefully we're receive advantageous pricing. But that won't be, it's not due till just before Thanksgiving. So we'll probably have another meeting in between any time for discussion comes.
All right, great.
Okay, great. Anything else, Joe, that you need to say before we?
No, just going through whatever we can get through to catch up and finish as much as we can while we still have the warm weather cooperating with us. Outside of that, we're gonna buckle down and see what happens over the colder months.
Right. Well, just really quick, I think you've done a great job, you and all your colleagues, and all the cleanup from these intense wind events that we've had the past few weeks. So in addition to all the different construction challenges. So bravo.
Been an interesting
Yep,
year. that's for sure.
Definitely. And Joe, as we move into the winter, you and I will be in a whole new level of coordination of school, whatever school closure means and all that.
I hope with the remote learning infrastructure that that is a little bit more kind of a situation for us.
Yeah, I mean, Melrose is already saying that if they have to close school for the day for the weather, as long as power is on, the kids are just going to do a day of remote learning.
Wow, we've been so concentrated on HVAC and then just helping out however we can with the cleanliness piece to it.
Yep.
We haven't even had that conversation. I figured that can happen down the road.
Interestingly, we didn't have that conversation either. I read it in an email to teachers from the superintendent.
Oh, nice.
That's how I found out.
Hey, you're kind of an important piece of that. So I'm surprised that you got that information that way.
Yeah, everything is flying by so quickly. We started hybrid learning today in Melrose. So Wakefield's ahead of the game.
Every day in is a day better than home.
Exactly.
See how long we can continue.
New world.
Yes.
That's for sure.
Okay, so any other business before we pick our next meeting date?
I don't think so. As far as picking a meeting date, you want to just want to follow up by email? We can include Chris in too, just to see.
Oh, that would be great. Yes. Is that okay with you, Elena?
Yeah, I just know off the top of my head that the 9th doesn't work for me. I have to be on a city council meeting that night. Although actually those don't start till later. So I just have to be off by probably 7.
All right, well, we'll try not to do it on the 9th so that you won't have 2 back-to-backs.
Although honestly, sometimes it's better. So never mind, I said that. The 9th.
Okay. If you mean it, then any Monday is fine. I'm very flexible, so I'll let you and Ann decide what dates you want to share with us.
Okay, we'll do.
Okay, so unless there's anything else, I think we're ready to adjourn at 6:46.
All right.
Motion?
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Excellent. Motion carried.
All right.
All right.
Thanks.
See ya.
Thank you. And thanks for all your hard work. Appreciate it.